It's a mystery as to how God works. We always want everything to be a linear line. Hey, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and we are like, why does this suffering happening? If you're like me, you've probably found out that one thing that God is a very thorough discipler of your heart. I always want more slack than I need, and God is just like, I'm helping you out. And you're like, okay, got enough help, I'm good to go. And he's like, you're not quite there yet. I'm gonna help you out just a little bit more. Like, oh, that hurts. It does hurt. But have you noticed that a lot of times the most painful things that we go through, and that extra is what transforms us. And we would not pick what we go through so often. Today, we wanted to talk about, or at least I want to talk about, hope. And I think hope is something that we all have. Now, sometimes we're having hope in greater measure. Sometimes we're having it in lesser measure. But a lot of times, if you are going to categorize hope, put little buckets of hope, so to speak, in that upper corner there, getting baptized, coming out of the water, saved. Man, you've got hopes for what your Christian life is going to be. I'm going to reach out to my family and friends. I'm going to tell them about Jesus, and they're going to go, but of course, this is amazing. Can't you take me to water and we get baptized today? And you have hopes of how you're going to change and grow and be transformed. Maybe you're looking forward to building a family, or maybe you come in with a family already and you want to grow and thrive and change and be different and make a difference in this world. Nobody becomes a Christian who doesn't want to make a difference. We want to have an impact. We want things to change. We want the world to be better. And as Joe and Monte were praying, as we're looking at what's going on in this world, man, we want the world to be better for us personally and for the people that we interact with. A lot of times we have hope for relationships. And this is me with a couple. We had a marriage retreat like about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And he's a brother. They're both a brother and sister in the Fort Myers church. They got married about a year ago or so. They're loving life, engaged and happily married. And they've got a lot of hopes for their marriage. But I put that up there because when Trent went down to Nova Southeastern University in Fort Myers, he roomed with Mark. And he was down there. He got in the PA program there, and so he's studying and working. And while he was there, he ended up having a lot of troubles with his back, a lot of pain, a lot of difficulty, and it really caused him to draw back from God. And he actually ended up being not a great roommate for Mark. It was he left on difficult terms, and he kind of went on his wilderness journey. And so there were times when he was just, he would come and visit us back home, but you could tell, he was there, but the spiritual lights were not on. And so it was about a 3-year journey. But the great thing is he eventually graduated, which honestly was a time of great growth for Lorianne and I. But he graduated, he went to Sarasota, he started getting spiritually re-engaged. Eventually he was restored. And of course, now he's doing great out there in Colorado. But I say all that to say, when I'm talking to Mark, I appreciate Mark's friendship to Trent despite Trent's difficultness. And Trent, went back, he apologized, he made everything right, and he worked it out. But I was just talking to him at this thing, and he was like, excuse me, man, Trent's great. I just really appreciate it. He had such a great spirit. There was not a hint of bitterness or anything about the difficulty he'd been with. But it's these relationships. You want your child to do good. You have hope for your marriage to go great. You have hope to have great friendships and great connection and great family. These are probably one of the most primal things that we hope about is our relationships, our friendships, and our family. And then we have hope in the face of suffering. And I'm sure many of you, all of us will go through suffering at some level. Probably all of us have been through different levels of suffering already. We've had suffering in relationships. We've had suffering in health. We've had suffering with, my children have just not done exactly what I wanted, which is basically every child ever. But, there may be an extra level of heartache involved. But we can go through hard times. And pretty much the favorite statement during hard times is, Why me? Why is this happening to me? Why is whatever ABC is? Why me? Why is, Bob over here, life he's killing it. It's going great for him, and I'm suffering over here because I got laid off, or because I've got marriage difficulties, or something going on with my child, or something going on with my health, or my parents, or whatever. And suffering is a real part of the Christian life. And sometimes we have hope. That last thing there, that is a mile marker. It's the 30-kilometer mile marker, so I guess maybe it's a kilometer marker and not actually a mile marker. But we have these milestones in life that we hope to achieve. Hey, I want my career to thrive. I want to do awesome. Or, man, I have this hope of someday, having a house or with, the family and the kids in it. Or, we have these different things that we desire to achieve. And so we have a lot in our life that's wrapped up in hope. And a proverb that we see is, delayed hope makes the heart sick, but fulfilled desire is a tree of life. We're waiting on that. We're waiting on maybe to get pregnant, or we're waiting on that special someone, or we're waiting to have deep friendships, or we're waiting for a breakthrough in our career. And it means a lot to us. And some things mean more to some people than others. Some people, the career is everything because of how they grew up or whatever. And we know as Christians it can't be everything, but it still can be a godly desire that we really aspire to, depending on how it goes. And we can feel heartsick. So this morning I want to ask you, how's your heartsickometer? If you had to put your thumbs right there on the two little white pads, where would your reading be? Would you be like, man, life is good? Because some of us this morning, life's going pretty good. God, you feel like God's on your team, you're kind of killing it. Amen. Others of us, we got some good things going. Some things are a little bit hard. We're kind of middling in the road there. We got the little flat face there in the center. And some of us are feeling like the guy on the right. Man, I wish some things were different. God, have you forgotten about me? I think I'm not at the top of your list anymore. I think other people have become more important. And we can maybe have a deep sadness that settles in. Well, today I want to look at a man, Hezekiah. I've been doing a lot of study in Isaiah, and he's a king in Judah. He was actually one of the top kings, maybe even the best king that Judah had after they had a divided nation. But he faced a lot of challenges in his life. I think a lot of times we look to the end of when Hezekiah's got this prayer and there's the Assyrian army and all of that, and we look to that and we live faithfully on that moment. But there's a lot behind that allowed him to get there, and I think it can help us. And so we're going to look here, excuse me, in Isaiah chapter 38. It says, in those days, Hezekiah became terminally ill. The prophet Isaiah, son of Amoz, came and said to him, this is what the Lord says. Put your affairs in order, for you are about to die. You will not recover. Then Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and prayed to the Lord. He said, please, Lord, remember how I have walked before you faithfully and wholeheartedly and have done what pleases you. And Hezekiah wept bitterly. Seems like a rough day. Be kind of tempted to go, man, after all I've done, what did Hezekiah do? Hezekiah came in and he did all kinds of corrections to what his dad did, Ahaz. His dad was a bad, bad man. He instituted child sacrifice. He instituted high places of worship, which God said not to do. They're just setting up various altars on hills. He brought in the worship of Baal. He desecrated the temple. I mean, he made alliances with other nations he shouldn't have made. He was bad, 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 bad. We're talking probably one of the worst kings, if not the worst king in Judah. Hezekiah comes in and goes, man, and it's amazing to me, how can Ahaz raise Hezekiah? And Hezekiah goes, whoop, that's it. Take down all the high places. We're going to go cleanse the temple, and we're going to restore temple worship. We're going to get rid of, child sacrifice. We're going to do this right. We're going to create a people that is holy and loves God. And then at 14 years, God says, game over. How would you feel in that moment? Would you be like, man, after all I've done? I don't know if you ever had that thought, after all I've done. God, this is what happened. I've had that thought a lot. God, after all I've done, and this is happening to me. I was just trying to do the right thing. I was just trying to help out, and it blew up in my face. We can feel that. We can feel that suffering. But Hezekiah comes in, goes from zero to hero, and then he turns and he prays. I think the bitterness of his weeping just says, man, this is hard. But if you look on down in verse 5, I don't have it on the screen, but it says, I have heard your prayer. This is God's response. I have seen your tears. Look, I'm going to add 15 years to your life, and I will deliver you and this city from the power of the king of Assyria. I will defend this city. So he prays. God says, all right, I'm going to give you 15 more years. I find it odd that God says, I'm going to tell you how much longer you got. You know, first couple years, you're probably feeling good, but now it's like, wow, this is like year 10, and then year 11, like, you know, tick, 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 you know, it's coming down. But he gives him 15 more years. But he says, and I will deliver you and this city from the power of the king of Assyria. So what is actually happening? Hezekiah comes in, makes all these great reforms, and then in year 14, or maybe it's year 13, he says to Assyria, hey, you know what? We've actually been paying you tribute and relying on you for protection, and that's unholy, and that's unrighteous, and so we're bouncing. We are no longer going to pay you tribute. We're going to trust in God. That sounds awesome. He's putting all these things into place. So what happens? The king of Assyria, Sennacherib, goes, all right, we're ready to rumble. Got the army. We're coming in. So while he's told he's going to die, the Assyrians are busy invading Judah, conquering city after city after city. We're not sure if he's gotten to the point where he's surrounded Jerusalem or not yet. But it's not looking great. And in the middle of this, God's going to take Hezekiah out, who really seems to be the king that's on God's team. You know, it's a mystery as to how God works. We always want everything to be a linear line. Hey, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and we are like, why is this suffering happening? You know, why has my spouse died before his time? We'd planned on growing old together. Why are my children going through these trials? I felt that a lot with Trent when he was down and going through his struggles in Fort Myers. God, what's going on? You know, we can experience this. And we feel it and we wonder, what is God doing? And I think one of the things God's always doing is he's working on us. But we're going to go on and get a little perspective on this in Isaiah chapter 36. Whoops. See if I hit the right button. There we go. You can turn in your Bibles or your electronic devices or whatever. I guess most everybody powers up these days. Maybe somebody's old school with a paper Bible out there. I heard a whoop over here. Yes, the proud paper people. They're like, what is the matter? There we go, holding them up, yeah. This is righteousness. Oh, thank you. Paper Bibles. I agree with you, but honestly, it's just not as convenient. I'm sorry. What can I say? I'm an inconsistent person. All right. In Isaiah 36, verse 1, it says, in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, attacked all the fortified cities of Judah and captured them. Then the king of Assyria sent Rabshakeh, along with a massive army, from Lachish to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem. The Assyrians stood near the conduit of the upper pool by the road to the fuller's field. Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, who was in charge of the palace, Shebna, the court secretary, and Joah, son of Asaph, the court historian, came out to him. The Rabshakeh said to them, tell Hezekiah, the great king, the king of Assyria, says this, what are you relying on? I say that your strategy and military preparedness are mere words. What are you now relying on that you've rebelled against me? Look, you are trusting in Egypt, that splintered reed of a staff that will enter and pierce the hand of anyone who leans on it? This is how the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, is to all who trust in him. Suppose you say to me, we trust in the Lord our God. Isn't he the one whose high places and altars Hezekiah has removed, saying to Judah and Jerusalem, you are to worship at this altar? You know, this is what they wake up to right here. On all sides, they're surrounded. This was an army of 185,000. Anybody out here use ChatGPT? Yeah, there's a few of you. That's it. It's coming. It's coming. You better figure it out. But anyway, I got on there. I'm like, what was a big army in the first, or the 10th century BC or 7th century, whatever this is? And they say, well, big armies are around 50 to 100,000 for the nations that could field them. So we're talking 185,000. We're talking superpower. We're talking conquering, destroying, laying waste. This is not good. This is like no-win situation. We're not going to read every part in it, but at one point, the Rabshakeh, who's basically, this is like an official title like Secretary of State, Chief of Staff, as opposed to a guy's name. But he was basically saying, look, you guys, it's going to be so dire. There's going to be no food in that city. You're going to run out of water. It's going to be crushing. You will be begging to surrender. This is the mess they're in. Why is that? One of it is they could not escape the judgment that Ahaz had brought on Judah. Because Ahaz was a very bad man, but a lot of the Jews went along with the very bad man. And they were out worshiping at the high places, which the Rabshakeh shows he doesn't even know about God because he doesn't know that the high places are bad. But the Israelites wandered astray too. God has brought judgment on them. It's also Satan. Satan's like, man, let me get you. Let me discourage you. Let me take you out. Let me destroy the temple worship. And Hezekiah, he's referencing here an alliance with Egypt. He was kind of cracking under the pressure. He'd made an alliance with Egypt. Hey, Egypt, can you come bail us out instead of relying on God? For a while there, once this started happening, he tried to pay off and bribe Assyria. Hey, stop it. Okay, sorry. And that didn't work. And so God is coming in, and I think if you were Hezekiah, you could go, oh, it's all my fault. What a loser I am. Super loser. I was so stupid. Why did I seek aid from from Egypt? Why did I try to bribe off Assyria? Why did I even break this original contract we had? It wasn't the best thing, but it wasn't the worst thing. Have you been there? It's all my fault. I'm more of a it's all my fault kind of guy. What did I do? Man, what a knucklehead I am. I can't believe that. Of course, some people are like, not my fault. I can't help it if I had an evil father. I can't help it if I'm being attacked by an evil nation. Look, all I'm trying to do, God, is the right thing here. And now my country's getting destroyed. And I've got all these cities out here that have already been conquered. People are now in suffering. What's going on here? God, why are you not on my side? Maybe that's you this morning. What good is it to hope in God? If you're like me, you've probably found out that one thing that God is a very thorough discipler of your heart. Oh yeah, I got a lot of murmur out of that. That's for sure. He doesn't cut me enough slack. I always want more slack than I need. And God is just like, I'm helping you out. And you're like, okay, got enough help. I'm good to go. And he's like, you're not quite there yet. I'm going to help you out just a little bit more. Like, oh, that hurts. It does hurt. But have you noticed that a lot of times the most painful things that we go through, and that extra is what transforms us. And we would not pick what we go through so often. But today, you think about your heart-sickometer. These things that are happening to you in your life. How are you feeling today? Are you able to continue to trust and rely on God that He is your hope? Are you feeling frustration with Him? Like, man, what am I going to do? When is it going to change? When are you going to relent? When are you going to give me a break? I've been praying about this thing over and over. And you're desperate for help. You know, what was Hezekiah feeling in this moment? God, why? Why the suffering? You know, and so what is Hezekiah to do? Man, is he got to find who I'm going to pin the blame on? Or is he going to take it all on himself? Or maybe he should seek to go, where is God leading me? You know, that's always what we should do. That is usually not my first favorite choice. My other choice would be, oh, this is hard. What am I going to do? I love to go into action. I like to come up with a plan. I like to rechart my own destiny. Maybe I need to read a book. There's something I've got to figure out here. I want to get going. I want to make it happen. And part of what God is always trying to do is bring us back to, trust in me, rely on me. But what happens is when we're in these hard times, Satan will come in and start whispering to us. And he starts whispering here, or actually shouting to Hezekiah and the nation of Judah. In Isaiah 36 and verse 13, it says, and the Rabshakeh stood and called out loudly in Hebrew, listen to the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. This is what the king says. Don't let Hezekiah deceive you, for he cannot deliver you. Don't let Hezekiah persuade you to trust in the Lord, saying, the Lord will certainly deliver us. The city will not be handed over to the king of Assyria. Don't listen to Hezekiah, for this is what the king of Assyria says. Make peace with me and surrender to me. Then every one of you may eat from your own vine and his own fig tree and drink from water from his own cistern until I come and take you to a land like your own, a land of grain and new wine, a land of bread and vineyards. He's saying, look, trust me. I will care for you. We will give you all the food that we want. We will take you to wherever that place is the women are going, the La Playa Grande or whatever, It's a veritable resort when we lead you off into captivity. And you're sitting there faced with what seems so hard, and there's this temptation to go, well, maybe it'll be okay if I just trust. He wants you to make peace. He says, beware that Hezekiah does not mislead you by saying, the Lord will deliver us. Has any of the gods of the nations delivered his land from the power of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Seraphim? Have they delivered Samaria from my power? Who among all the gods of these lands ever delivered his land from my power? So will the Lord deliver Jerusalem. Satan comes in and he's attacking. He's attacking every Israelite. He's attacking Hezekiah. And what he's saying is look, make peace with me. Cut a deal with me. Do we really have to go to church all that much? Do we really have to say no to all the sin? How serious do I have to be about this Christianity thing? I see a lot of people just kind of middling on by. And we can go, well, what about that guy over there? And Satan is always tempting you to compromise. What did he tempt you to compromise with this week? What did he tempt you with to compromise this morning? I'll just stay home. I'll watch it online. It's easier. I can kind of have it playing in the background, and I can clean the floors, and and I can prepare dinner for the week, and it'll work out easier rather than I got to get in the car, I got to drive over here, got to fight the crowds, get inside, get my seat, Now once you get here and you go through all the big hassle of it, you're like, oh, it's so good to be here, and I'm getting hugs, and it's encouraging, and it's way better. But there's a part where Satan's like, no, you don't have to do that. And then, you didn't go last week and it was fine. You don't have to go this week. Satan's always tempting us. He says, make a deal with me. Whoops, I hit the wrong button, I think. There we go. Make a deal with the devil. Sign on the dotted line. Like, I don't think a lot of times we think of it that way. That's what Satan's doing. He's tempting us to say no to righteousness and yes to comfort and ease. He doesn't say you have to stop believing in God. Just don't be quite so zealous for it all. You know, you don't have to stop having quiet times. Just, 2 or 3 is fine. Kind of every other day and take the weekends off. So Satan's whispering all this stuff. Because all he wants to do is get a little progress. Then we'll get a little more, and there's a little further drift, and a little more, and then before you know it, you're all the way over here. It's not a good spot, and you're like, those guys at church are always hassling me. What a big hasslerometer that was. If you had a hasslerometer, then that would be peg instead of the heart sickometer. I use hassleometer a lot in Tampa. But Satan tempts us, hey, it's somebody else's fault. It's not my fault. Man, this brother or sister can be a hassle. Hey, it's my boss. He's really driving down on me. Hey, my financial situation. The church should be doing this or that and having another program or whatever. But basically what Satan is saying, look, I would really love for you to be selfish. Do you just give in to a little selfishness? A little selfishness will do you good. What was that expression? Treat yourself. Just treat yourself. It'll be all right. That's what Satan's saying. A few years ago, we were at a conference up in Boston. It was like late September or October. And so we're up there, we're at this conference, and afterwards, that's near our anniversary. Our anniversary is towards the end of October 24th. I do remember the date. It'll be 37 years this year. I even know how many years it is. But we were there and we said, hey, why don't we go afterwards? Let's drive up to Maine because the leaves are changing. We've never been to Maine. We'll get a little Airbnb up there. It'll be like 3 or 4 days. It'll be awesome. So we made all these plans. So the conference is over. And of course, it's Boston. It's a big city. So I got to get on the subway to go get a rental car and come back and pick up Lorianne. And I'm in the line for the rental car agency, and I'm doing my favorite thing, which is waiting in line. And while I'm in line, I don't know if you do this, I try to sit here and plan ways that these people could be more efficient. Slackers. They should already have me out. And to top it off, the lady at the desk, she is committing one of the most grievous sins that any checkout person could do. She is being friendly with each and every person. Every person, how it's so good to see you. How you doing here today? And I'm like, man, why does this woman keep talking? I'm just in the line, and I move one step forward, brushing, cotton picking, brushing, cotton picking. Why? Why do I have to suffer like this? Lord, I'm serving you in the ministry. Why are you doing this to me? So I get all the way up there. I get to this lady, and she's been all friendly, and I'm just like, I'm trying, okay, try to remember you're a Christian. Hang on. It's going to be okay. How are you doing? I'm like, great. She goes, why are you here? I'm like, minister's conference. She goes, oh, that's wonderful. It's so good. You know what? Let me find you a discount. There, I've reduced your rate by 60%. Oh, and let me upgrade your car. It's so good to have you here. I'm so glad. And it's your anniversary. Oh, we'll put flowers in the car. All right, I exaggerate. But you get the point. The lady's killing me with niceness. And I am leaving. Sometimes the Lord convicts you through hard things. Sometimes he convicts you through good things. And I am just leaving. What a loser minister of the gospel I am. Bam! Every nice thing she did was like bionic elbow from the professional wrestlers. I was dying 1,000 deaths. I will say, it taught me a lesson about my selfishness. I'm like, you need to consider others better than yourself. Flash forward, we went out and visited about 3 months ago the Holy Sacred Grandchild in Denver. We sat there, what an amazing, we all determined she's gifted. I mean, it's amazing what you can find out at like age 1 year, We come back home. In this day and age, you can get online, stop the mail, and then it starts it back up. It's pretty seamless. But we're back, and I keep going to the mailbox, and the mail is not showing up. It's like after 4 days, I'm like, all right, something went wrong. So I go to the post office, and I go to the guy, and he's like, well, you got to go around the door and ring this thing. I ring it, and a lady comes up, and she goes, what's up? And I said, well, my mail was supposed to start up. They haven't gotten it yet. What's the address? I wrote it down for her. Okay. She leaves. She is gone for a very long time. I do not know how this is possible. It's like she left the post office to go to my house to make sure that it wasn't in the box. I mean, it was a long time. It's not that big back there. She finally comes back. She brings me my mail, and she hands it to me. She goes, I'm so sorry for the trouble. And I was like, no worries, mistakes happen. I didn't really think anything of it. She goes, thank you for your kindness. Because so often, I don't think people are kind, especially to the post office. I'm just saying, when we put to death selfishness, it becomes a transforming thing in our lives and the lives of the people that we impact. But Satan wants us to do that deal, to give in to selfishness, to be all about me, and say, God, why are you not fulfilling my desires on my timetable? My surrender is not to Satan, but to God. It's saying no to every sin. It's saying yes to God's way. I'm not talking about perfection. We blow it, we get back on our horse. But I'm talking about a life that is growing in less sin and in more devotion to God. That's what God expects us to do. What does Hezekiah do? He rends his clothes. He goes into the temple. He sends for Isaiah, and he goes, man, we pray for us, help. What are we going to do? But right as he's doing that, Sennacherib sends another letter and doubles down. And in verse 10 of Isaiah 37, it says, say to Hezekiah, don't let your God whom you trust deceive you by promising that Jerusalem won't be handed over to Assyria. Look, you've heard of the kings of Assyria have done to the other countries. They completely destroyed them. Who will rescue you? And then going on down, verse 14, it says, Hezekiah took the letter from the messengers, read it, and then went up to the Lord's temple and spread it out before the Lord. Then Hezekiah prayed to the Lord. Lord of hosts, God of Israel, who is enthroned above the cherubim, you are God. You alone of all the kingdoms of the earth. You made the heavens and the earth. Listen closely, Lord, and hear. Open your eyes, Lord, and see. Hear all the words that Sennacherib has sent to mock the living God. Lord, it is true that the kings of Assyria have devastated all these countries and their lands. They have thrown their gods into the fire, for they were not gods, but made by human hands, wood and stone, so they have destroyed them. Now, Lord, our God, save us from his power, so that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you are the Lord, you alone. Hezekiah is concerned for God's honor. He would not mind as a byproduct of them being saved. But even that is a testimony to God. He is offended by what Sennacherib has said. That he is offended the true God. Why? Because we can have the desire for our hopes. But really what our desire needs to be is for God. God, what do you want? How can I fulfill your mission for me in my life? What is it you want me to do today? Who do you want me to interact with? How do you want to help? God, please use your Holy Spirit to lead me each and every day, to love and serve and be with you and to care for you. How can I do that? What can I be? Our proverb, back to our proverb here, well, I'll read it to you, was having a heart sickness. Are you able to overcome the heart sickness? This proverb is talking about our dreams, but ultimately our desires are satisfied only in God. At this point, Hezekiah's heart is saying, God, vindicate yourself. God, save the world so that the world can see you as the true God, not one of these fake gods that gets thrown into the fire and gets burned up, but the true, the living and holy God. This desire is for God. Hezekiah took it all to God. He took the fear and the pain and the victories and the defeats, the culmination of his life to this point. And he took his desire for God's glory in prayer to God. In verse 37 of Isaiah, 21 of Isaiah 37, it says, the son of Amoz sent a message to Hezekiah. The Lord, the God of Israel, says, because you prayed to me about Sennacherib, king of Assyria, this is that the word has spoken. This is the word that the Lord has spoken against him. And it goes on to say, Assyria's toast. That's the rough translation. The angel of the Lord goes and destroys 185,000 Assyrians. Ultimately, Sennacherib is killed by his own kids when he goes back home. But because you prayed. You know, when it's really hard and it's hard to hang on to hope and it's hard to trust in God, are you going to God in prayer and saying, God, help me understand, see me through, but I trust in you. No matter what is happening, I will trust in you. You have delivered me before. I know you will deliver me again. And even if it's not delivery, even if it ends in death or suffering or despair, I trust in where you're leading. That's what Hezekiah was called to. Hezekiah was promised 15 more years. God didn't say whether he was going to be in captivity or not. He didn't know if they were going to be ousted. He said eventually the Assyrians would be destroyed, but Hezekiah in the moment doesn't know. The source of our healing is God. Look, I'm not discounting talks with friends. I'm not talking about prayer and studying your Bible. All of that is true and powerful. But the source of our healing is God. God is that supernatural change agent. We are calling on the supernatural to transform our lives, to give us strength and courage and conviction, or to change our situation. But life as a Christian is a supernatural experience. Don't let the world convince you that it's a natural thing. That's what the world misses so much, is that we are part of a supernatural world, and our soul and our spirit is an eternal existence, and there's a supernatural thing that's going on. I believe that's one of the biggest causes of suffering in the world, and like relationships and marriage, is because marriage has become so cheap, sex is so easy, and yet there is a supernatural thing that happens in that situation, and it's led to so much destruction because people don't recognize that and the power that's behind it and the heartache that causes. But we are in a supernatural existence with a supernatural God. You know, I've prayed a lot of prayers. God says yes, God says wait, and God says no. I got baptized 1983, just a couple of years ago. And in 83, I started praying for my family to become Christians. My mom, my dad, my brother. Prayed that prayer. Still pray that prayer. Prayed that prayer up through last year. Still praying it. But last year, my dad died. Not a disciple. It's in the Lord's hands. I trust in God. But, you know, I go, why is look, my dad was an educator. At his funeral, there were so many people saying so many good things about my dad. How he'd helped them, how he'd helped them in their career, how he'd helped their students. My dad was a giving guy. Why is it that my dad does not become a disciple? Another guy that is self-absorbed, alcoholic, and abusive father does. How does that happen? God, I prayed. A large part of who I am is because my dad, in many ways, was a good man. I wanted this. And I had to surrender that. You know, I think it's the same for all of us. We rejoice in the yeses. We trust in the no's. And we wait for the not yets. Our real hope is that what God will do, He will do in His time for our best benefit. You know, this morning, Wherever your heart sickometer is, if it's in the good times, great. I think you'll eventually be in a not good time, given you live long enough. Maybe if you die on the way home, you're good. You just go straight to heaven and be happy. But if you live probably anywhere from another 3 to 6 months and beyond, you're probably going to hit the heart sickometer. It's going to get up there in that sadness. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to go to yourself? Are you going to go to selfishness? Or are you going to go to our great and awesome supernatural God that will see you through the no's so that you can trust, you can rejoice in the yeses when your son gets restored, and you can wait on the not-yets that maybe my mom will become a Christian? Let's do that together because God is our desire. Have a great day.